Welcome. My name is Josh Payton, and I'm happy to be here with you today on this International Transgender Day of Visibility. Today, we're going to have a conversation on name and gender marker corrections right here in the state of Oklahoma. Some of you may know me as the attorney behind the name and gender marker change clinic that we run through the Dennis Arneal Equality Center. I'm happy to report that we're still having success acquiring court orders to change the name and gender markers of individuals. In fact, since December of 2021, we've completed over 50 such orders, with success as far away as Comanche County to right here in our backyard in Tulsa. Today, our conversation will begin with one of my clients, Rowan Fowler, where we'll discuss what it was like before they knew about the clinic. We'll discuss their experience through the clinic, and then ultimately, we'll discuss why they decided to be a plaintiff in federal litigation challenging the governor of the state of Oklahoma on this very issue. I'm really pleased that we'll be able to then transition to a roundtable discussion with Lambda Legal, which is comprised of some of the top attorneys in the nation on this topic. With Lambda Legal, we'll discuss why they decided to file federal litigation in Oklahoma. So why Oklahoma? What are the numbers and the reasons why this is such an important issue in this state? We'll then transition and talk a little bit about the legal theories that are at risk here and what we hope to achieve. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I did, and I hope you have a wonderful International Transgender Day of Visibility. All right, we're here with Roland Fowler today to talk about their experience through the name and gender marker change clinic, and then also a little bit about why they want to be a plaintiff, or are a plaintiff, in this federal litigation that was filed in February against Governor Stitt. So I'm just going to pass it off to you, Roland. Let's introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about Rowan Fowler.
Hi, I'm Rowan Fowler, local photographer, artist, and also a facilitator myself over at the Equality Center. I facilitate the gender support group. So,
yeah, that's great. And I know that there's a lot of people that you're connected to in the community, and that's why I thought it'd be a good idea for us to have this conversation. Let's talk about the name and gender marker change clinic a little bit before you met me. I want to know kind of your mindset of, like, did you think it was possible? Had you looked at it before? Like, where were you before you showed up at the name and gender marker change clinic?
I actually didn't know how easy or possible it would be at the time. I knew I wanted it. I knew I wanted to change my name and my marker. And it was a very important part of establishing my identity. So, and quite honestly, the day that we appeared in court actually was one of the most affirming days of my life up to that point. And quite honestly, actually today, it's while we've had several experiences that have come close, that was the day that made me feel the absolute best about myself and the best about my transition in general and the journey I'm on.
Yeah, so let's unpack that just a little bit. Let's talk about that identity and transition. I would think that having a state or city or government, say Roland Fowler and the gender that you want, I mean, talk a little bit about how affirming that is. You already mentioned it generally, but I mean, can you dissect that at all?
It's one of the best feelings whenever you get called by your name, the name you've chosen and the name that you put out there. In my case, before I came to you, I'd actually had spoken with my mother and my brother about my name. And while I was going to change my name no matter what, I'd gotten their input and their stamp of approval because I had taken my mother's middle name as my own. Mm-hmm. And it was felt very good to have that.
Yeah.
Family name there. And then also my brother, I'm an identical twin, so having my brother's input was very important to me, and making sure that, he liked my name too. And it was almost immediate when they started using my name and my pronouns, which takes a lot of pressure off of you emotionally hearing those things. And as patient as we want to be with people, getting used to using our name and pronouns, whenever you hear your dead name or you get called the wrong pronouns, it's like a punch to the gut. You know, there's nothing like, you know, we all remember the first day we made it the entire day without getting misgendered or dead named. It's a very integral part of our experience and very integral to our mental health, really.
Yeah, I mean, because that's part of the process for you, right? It's like living
Right.
authentically, and you know, the power of the name. You talked about, you know, adopting your mother's name as yours. I mean, those are powerful things that provide a lot of meaning. Well, you know, I love you, and that you know, my whole family loves you. We this isn't just a, you know, client attorney relationship here. One thing I did notice from you was a little bit more of a pep in your step, you know, like, and also wanting to make a difference. Like, you're like, okay, I've done this. Let's go get some other people involved.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
The one comment that I have received since, you know, transitioning and since, you know, getting my name changed from almost everybody is, you are happier than I have ever seen you. And that's being said to me. And it's shock to hear, actually. I mean, it makes me happy, don't get me wrong, but it is a shock going, was I really that outwardly miserable before? And yes, apparently I was.
Yeah.
So it was so much so that the change in my attitude was very apparent.
Right.
I'm, you know, there's always that regret of why you haven't done, why I did not transition sooner, but you can't change the past, of course. But I tell people I'm going, I am happier on my worst day now than I've ever been in my entire life. So that says something. So when my worst day right now is still better than any other day prior to transitioning, that's something that's pretty powerful.
Well, and it seems fitting for today because, you know, this will be airing on the International Transgender Day of Visibility.
Right.
It seems like you're like, hey, world, look at me. You know, this is the real me.
Yes.
I love me, and kind of watch out, world, because, you know, here comes Rowan Fowler, right?
Yeah. Well, I've been, and also just my mental health is so much better with just these little things. I am a lot more creative now. I'm a lot more driven than I have been in a long time. And I mean, I have new projects that I would never have considered trying to do before that are on my plate and I'm working through now. And it's just, it's really has touched every point in my life.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so when I was talking to Shelley Skeen, who will meet later on in this discussion on the panel, when we talk about the federal litigation, and they, you know, we've been begging for their attention for a while. Like,
right.
hey, you know, come look at Oklahoma. We need your help. And we finally got to the point where they're involved and they're reaching out to local attorneys. And I was grateful and blessed to be a part of that. And they said, hey, do you know anybody who wants to be a plaintiff? In my mind, I was like, well, do I? I know someone. Like, Gary is a big personality who, you know, I know you well enough to know that, well, you did talk about fear just now in terms of, like, you know, the fear of taking on a project. When it comes to now who you are in the community, I mean, you've taken, you know, because we talked to you about things like you will be doxxed, you will put your life in danger, you may, not may, you will receive death threats, and the seriousness of that. So why did you want to be a part of the litigation?
Well, as wonderful as the day whenever I got my court order from the Tulsa County court system, first thing is for me, the day that they told me that they were not going to change my gender marker on my birth certificate was crushing. I felt as bad on that day as equally as bad on that day as I did as good on the day I got my court order.
Right.
And I'm in a situation as of this time that is quite honestly could be considered kind of the ideal with the situation that we have in Oklahoma. And yet my life is still hard. And with me being the facilitator, and I hear all the stories from all the other individuals who are transgender and they're non-binary, trans man, trans women. You know, not only did I need to do this for myself, but I needed to do it for them so that they would be able to have the name of their own that fits with their being, have the marker that fits with their being as well, because it is a very positive experience. And the truth of the matter is, you know, as you all know, having identification that does not match who you are can put you in dangerous situations. I mean, without ever meaning to. It also can put you in situations where you can be discriminated against. And again, I'm in the best possible situation that there can be for Oklahoma, and I still run into this many times every week. And we should not be forced to out ourselves every time we have to present an ID, every time we have to present a birth certificate. It's just a matter of give me my dignity, give me my humanity, and give me my sense of safety, please.
Right. It's so fascinating because, you know, I look at things from a legal perspective on this, and the right to privacy is one of the most fundamental parts of, you know, being American, right?
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's like not, you can stay outside the front door, but when you come inside my house, or when, you know, or my relationship with my doctor, you know, there's whole laws against allowing that information out, but not for transgender people, right?
No, we are exempted from that. You know, we should not, I was assigned male at birth. That should not be an issue whenever I'm looking for a job or ordering food at a restaurant or any number of things. It's, people do not think about when they present identification or how often you present identification. It's a very common thing. I mean, even your birth certificate's way more common than what we think about, but it's not, you don't think about it. You just present it and you take it back. And for us, it's, especially prior to getting my driver's license updated, it was a point of dread to show that picture of me, show that name, that gender marker. I avoided it at every opportunity I could. In point of, I went only to friends, my business is owned by my friends, so I wouldn't have to. And I was very lucky. My bank, I had to do it once, and they actually put a note in my account saying never ask for her identification unless over a certain amount of money or something like that. There was something that they could do legally where they didn't have to ask for my identification. Of course, I always go to the same branch anyway, so I know everybody there. But I shouldn't have to restrict my life in those ways, and nobody should.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I'm going to tell you again, I love you. It's been very special to build a relationship with you. It was an honor to be a part of your journey. I want to give you an opportunity just to talk to the person out there who's hesitant, who doesn't know that they can do their name and gender marker right here. You know, we can at least right now get the ID still.
Yes.
Talk about, help me help people come so that we can help them.
When you're ready, it's the most affirming thing you can do for yourself. It's the best form of self-care. Your mental health is going to improve just simply with this one action. And it doesn't matter what your journey looks like, if you're planning on medically transitioning or how long your journey looks, this is the step you can do today.
man, I feel like you're preaching some very good news to people. And I want to just reiterate, I'm gonna kind of stare at the camera and say this: take affirmative steps. It doesn't matter how small. Just email me. Email the Equality Center, call the Equality Center. There are people who have the resources to help you. Don't let money be a reason. Don't let fear be a reason. We have a community that is here to help you. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Hesitate, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Thank you so much, Rowan. We're gonna try to keep this whole thing short. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, of course, we always can.
Yeah, we're troubled together because we can just, keep going and going and going. But
Oh, we both love to talk. A little too much sometimes.
yeah, but for a lot of people out there, the things that I've heard that need to be said about, thank you for your courage, not only to be a plaintiff in the federal litigation, but the courage to be authentically you. I learned so much from you and others on how to truly be yourself. And I see you do that on a daily basis. And so if there is one thing on this International Transgender Day of Visibility, let's show the authentic us and you. And, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for everything you've done for me.
All right, it's Josh Payton again. We just finished our conversation with Rowan Fowler, provided some great insight on what it's like to go through the clinic and then now be a plaintiff in some federal litigation against the state of Oklahoma. As promised, we have Lambda legal attorneys here, and then also Karen Wilkins, who's serving as local counsel in the federal litigation. We're really excited for you to be here. Going to start out with some introductions just so we kind of know who's here. And Gilly, I'm going to start with you. Do you mind sharing your name and who you're with and what you're all about?
Sure thing, Josh. My name is Nicholas Guillory. Folks just call me Gilly. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a Tyrone Garner Memorial Law Fellow at Lambda Legal out of our Dallas office.
All right, that's great. We'll move on to Karen. Some of you may know Karen because she's involved heavily with the Equality Center. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, Karen.
My name's Karen Keith Wilkins. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a local attorney. This is outside of my normal range of practice. So Lambda Legal is luckily taking the lead on everything, but I'm here to help them however I can.
That's great. Thank you, Karen. And then Shelley Skeen, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Shelley Skeen, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior attorney, not old, senior attorney in our Dallas office at Lambda. And what Lambda does is work for full and lived equality for LGBTQ folks through impact litigation, education, and policy work, and also people who are living with HIV.
Okay, that's great. Well, since we're talking about Lambda Legal, I'm going to jump to Gilly because I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Lambda Legal and just plug, some of the great works that you're doing.
Yeah, so aside from being counsel on this case here in Oklahoma, we have various cases across the country affecting transgender folks, as well as our help desk that is nationwide that folks can reach via lambdalegal.org/helpdesk.
That's great. I know that I have sought Lambda Legal out quite a few times as a resource for information as an attorney trying to figure out what's going on across the country, and your help desk is very helpful from personal experience. All right, now we're going to talk about what's going on the ground in Oklahoma. We'll talk about some statistics in terms of what it's like to be transgender in Oklahoma and a little bit about the name and gender stuff. Gilly, let's transfer to you and talk a little bit about the numbers, if you don't mind.
Awesome, thank you. Josh, like you said, 25%, according to the U.S. Trans Survey, which is the largest survey of transgender folks in the nation, and by the National Center for Transgender Equality, 25% of Oklahomans, transgender Oklahomans, are living in poverty. 17% are unemployed. Specifically, in regards to our case, a really important number is the fact that 11% of respondents didn't have all of their identification documents that match their name and gender.
That seems really low. Is that low compared to other states?
That Oklahoma is one of the lower percentage states according to the U.S. Trend Survey.
Okay, and that's my experience through the name and gender marker change clinic that we do through the Dennis R. Miller Quality Center. There's so many great programs through that quality center, but they've been focusing on this name and gender marker change process. And I'm amazed at how many people aren't aware that you can do it to some degree in Oklahoma, and then there's and other attorneys don't know how to do it either. It's kind of surprising. So I want to lay that, here's the backdrop of where we are currently legally, is that it's really a judge by judge decision right now to grant orders for the gender marker portion. The statutorily in the Supreme Court has said you have to do the name change, but the gender part for driver's license and birth certificates are difficult because it's case by case. And we had a case last summer by Christopher Breck Smith, who had a client that they ended up settling with the Division of Vital Statistics, Department of Public Health in Oklahoma, and they did award a non-binary birth certificate. They've given one. And then quickly after that, we found, on November 8th of last year, the governor was like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make this go away, and issued an executive order that ordered the Division of Vital Statistics to stop honoring any court orders or any attempts to do gender corrections on birth certificates. So that's kind of where we are. As an attorney on the ground, after that, we started seeing some judges pull back and not, but we still are having some success. I know Karen has also had a client recently goes through that. We are able to get court orders. And in fact, just a little bit of good news. Last week, I was able to get the first driver's license order out of Oklahoma County for the clinic. So that's kind of where we are. We've had a change in the Division of Vital Statistics policy. And then in January, we started to get rejections for the birth certificate changes. So that's kind of led to Lambda Legal getting involved. Shirley, do you mind talking a little bit about why Oklahoma in terms of Lambda Legal's involvement on this issue?
Yeah, just a little bit more background context would be that nationwide, it looks like the numbers show about 66% of trans folks don't have identity documents that match who they are. So when you look at Oklahoma compared to that number nationwide, it is very, very low. And in the last few years, Lambda has really been, I'll do a little plug, at the forefront of, for those states that did not allow corrections to birth certificates, coming into those states and filing suit and then making it so that folks could get their birth certificates corrected. So Idaho, Ohio, Puerto Rico, Kansas, and then this is new, right, for Oklahoma. This, before the governor's executive order, you could correct a birth certificate. And Gilly and Karen are going to talk a little bit more, and you, Josh, as well, because you do it every day, why that's so important. But why we did this here is because, Oklahoma is an important state. It's in our region, and there's some really good case law that came out of the 10th Circuit. And so we felt like when the governor did this, it was part of our past work to come in and say, okay, well, there's many states, 47 states right now, that will correct a gender marker, and Oklahoma is now that state, that third state that will not. And so that's why we wanted to step in here and try to get this so that folks have equal access, right? Equal access to identity documents, equal access, or at least a little bit better opportunity to get a job, housing, and accessing goods and services because they have IDs that look like who they are.
Yeah, and when we were talking to Rowan earlier, they really talked about how life affirming the day of getting that court order was, and then even kind of excited to show their ID instead of the reservation before, the fear. And so Gilly, do you mind talking a little bit about the importance of why these documents are so important?
Yes, of course. So having access to accurate identification documents is incredibly important for many reasons. The number one being safety. So we know that 36% of respondents to the U.S. Trans Survey who have shown an ID that didn't match their name or gender, reported being verbally harassed, denied benefits or services, asked to leave, or even assaulted at different places. So it's a huge safety concern. On top of that, not having accurate identification documents also leads to barriers to unemployment and education as well.
So some really important things. I mean, those are very critical to live.
Incredibly important.
And they're things that I take for granted every day. And that's the hardest part for me, is trying to relate. And so if you're watching this, this is an important issue just for day-to-day life, and the life affirming aspect of having a birth certificate that's correct on the name and gender marker is fundamental. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's fundamental to, counteracting distress, to live an authentic life, to be who that they were intended to be. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the federal lawsuit in terms of what it addresses. We don't need to get too legal, because I know that I have a tendency to get into the law school all over again. Does anybody want to chime in a little bit in terms of what the federal portion, like why federal and why, and what are we, what's this lawsuit really targeting? Shelley, do you mind?
Sure. I just want to say also, segue, I am so grateful for Karen Wilkins and you, Josh, for all the work that you have done for our community for so very long. I've known Karen a long time and have called her up and said, hey, I need help on different legal issues. And so just grateful for y'all being here and doing this on this day. So really, it's a matter of the Constitution. The United States Constitution sets the minimum below which no state can refuse to offer rights. And so think of the United States Constitution as the minimum. And so our lawsuit, what we're doing is we're saying that people are not being treated equally, and they're not being treated equally in violation of what the Constitution would require, that basic minimum. And then same with the fact that we're being deprived of documents that everybody else has access to. And so that's part of those rights that you have to have, due process. And then the third one is that not having identity documents that match who you are, really it is two things. It's an invasion of your privacy, and it's an invasion of your right to speak, because the government can't require you to speak a message that you don't agree with. So it's really three violations: due process, equal protection, and free speech. And all of those, there are bare minimums in the Constitution.
And on those issues, you could have an entire semester law class on those, law school class on those, and not even really touch, get too deep on them because of all the law and history, everything there. But it is kind of remarkable, though. Can you say that again? We have some favorable law in the 10th Circuit. Is that accurate? Is that on the privacy issue, or is there anything you can share on that?
Yeah, and I'll also get, Gilly can chime in too. The 10th Circuit, right, is the circuit where Lambda has a case that's called the Zim case. And I'll let Gilly talk about that case. It's a great case. Yeah.
Yes, great case of Dana Zim, a non-binary intersex individual who just sought to update their passport with an X gender marker. So after the conclusion of that case, we got the new rollout of policies where you're now able to update your passport to have an X designation on your passport. This is honestly really unprecedented. It's been a long fight, but hopefully this is a step in the right direction. And with it coming out of the 10th Circuit, we are pretty confident that we can get some good decisions that way.
Okay, I want to say that again. You can get a passport with your corrected name and gender marker on it, correct?
Yes.
Sorry,
my bad. Yes, you're able to get a passport with your corrected name and gender marker including an X designation. And most importantly, now you're allowed to self-attest to your gender, which means all you have to do is sign a paper saying I am who I am, and the passport office will update your gender marker.
And that's a big deal because in Oklahoma, the way at least I do the name and gender marker, the gender correction part is, we did an affidavit or a notarized letter from a doctor that has a diagnosis. It's really draconian and, in my opinion, just not fair or acceptable in any way. But you don't have to have a doctor's letter. You can self-attest, correct? You can say,
yeah,
this is my stuff. Okay.
Yes. Those regulations are being slowly rolled out, but that is currently what you can do.
Okay, well, that's good news. All right, Karen, I'm going to put you on the spotlight. You've been on the ground for a long time on this issue. I remember talking to you early on in my struggles to figure out how to do this. And you were very gracious at the gala to kind of say, I got this judge to do it. This is how I did it. And then, I'm kind of jealous of you to be a part of this on the ground. I really am. I mean, this is a big deal for you. I hope that you feel the same way. Do you mind talking a little bit about when they were asking you to be local counsel? What's going through your head and why did you ultimately choose to do it?
No, absolutely. I will say in terms of what's going through my head is, of course, I'm happy to do that. Anything that I can do to help, of course, I'm going to do that. I think I will, and like anyone else here, where the only question is, can I help enough? And fortunately, and thank goodness, Lambda Legal was willing to jump in, because I know through discussions with other attorneys, including you, we were all so frustrated and overwhelmed with what was going on in the state, but none of us were civil rights attorneys. None of us are in a position to be able to focus our practice or our attention on this, to devote what was necessary to take it on as individual solo practitioners without a firm behind us, without, something else like that. And so I'm so very grateful to Lambda for taking it on. And, in terms of, I'm very appreciative to be any part of it that I can be. And yes, absolutely. I mean, it's exciting to be able to help in any way and be any part of something that, I truly believe will make a difference. As we've talked about kind of what the current situation is and what we've got for passports. And I wanted to kind of actually back up a little bit, because you talked about current orders and what you're currently able to get. And we are able to, not universally, but some judges are still issuing orders that say, yes, this individual qualifies for, should be granted a new birth certificate, amended birth certificate with a gender marker correction. Yeah. You brought up a driver's license correction. And so I wanted to be sure that people know that there is a way to get a driver's license still. One way is with a court order, one way is without a court order, and that is depending on individual diagnosis and treatment. And so we can't really, I'm not comfortable trying to triage all of that in this, but that's what you're there for. So go to the clinic, go to Josh, talk to him. He can advise you. Lambda has had, I know, some online seminars that I'm sure we can, pop on here next time they have one that helps with information on that as well. But there are still options right now for getting correct driver's licenses. And so I do want people to know that there is that little bit of relief. I also want people to understand that this block that the governor has done, put into place with his executive order, does not just affect individuals who are going to court today or last month for this. We have individuals who got their orders last summer, And they submitted the paperwork last summer
Yeah.
to get this. And because our state agencies are so overwhelmed and so understaffed and so backed up, even though it was submitted, at the beginning of July, for
Right.
one example, my client didn't get the rejection until the beginning of March.
Yeah. It just,
I mean, the timeline on this is somewhat insane and frustrating in and of itself, but that lag, that this time period for individuals to have thought that this was taken care of and
yeah.
that they had this, and then to have this rejection is just absolutely crushing. And it is purely out of antagonism towards the trans
Yeah.
community. I don't think that there's any justification for why a birth certificate cannot be corrected to reflect someone's identity. I don't think that there is even the slightest state interest
No.
in doing so. And the one thing that I had someone, what about the accuracy of record keeping of those who were born, and all I have to say is I do adoptions all the time.
Right.
And after an adoption, we go through and we get a brand new birth certificate, and it has who the legal parents are, and those parents are on that birth certificate as the parents, because that is the reality of this family, right?
No.
And no one worries about that
Right.
because we're not antagonistic towards adopted families. We don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Whereas what our clients have been receiving is a stapled on sheet of paper that says amendments. And it says, this is what was amended and on what date. So that is the other thing that our lawsuit is trying to do, is to actually have things a step better than where we were before, and not just have this amendments page that does, disclose what has been changed on that birth certificate, but to have an integrated document that is just an amended document.
Yeah, and going to your point on the, kind of the best day, worst day, earlier when I was talking to Rowan, they said the day they got the order for the name and gender marker change was the best day of their life. The day they got the rejection from the Division of Biostatistics was the worst day of their life. And that's the kind of swings we have in Oklahoma because of the way the law is and how contiguous it is. Now, Rowan's the type who gets up and continues to fight, and we're, that's why we are here. It's because we have people who want to be plaintiffs. You make a really good point that just because we can do, we can do some things, but it's still a fight, and we're still working on the ground. So I wanted to plug a couple of things. The Equality Center has so many great programs for families, for multiple different communities in the LGBTQ plus community. We do have the name and gender marker change, but there's so many resources there. I also want to plug Lambda Legal again and just say their website, their help desk, they're a consistent presence, and that's just a valuable thing. And for some reason, we're blessed with their attention right now in Oklahoma, and we're very thankful for that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that we're all busy and that we're all fighting our battles in different directions, but on this International Transgender Day of Visibility, I wanted to, and Toby Jenkins said, let's put the spotlight on these people that are doing the great work. So thank you so much for all that you do. And I look forward to continuing to fight next to you to make Oklahoma the best possible place for transgender folks.
Thank you for all of your work on the clinic, Josh. You're doing amazing stuff there.
Yeah, and thank you all. And if folks feel like they're not being treated fairly, please do reach out to our help desk. And we also have a phone number. If you don't have access to the internet or it's hard for you to get that access, you can call us on the phone too.
All right. Thank you so much.